She hit the pavement hard. One suitcase, one bruise spreading across her cheekbone, and a door, her own front door, locked behind her while rain soaked through her clothes. Lena Brooks had just been thrown out of her marriage, and the only person who opened a door to her that night was a man she barely knew. A Navy man. A single father. Someone carrying wounds she couldn't yet see. She thought he was joking when he said, "Stay with me." She wasn't laughing by morning. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And if this is your first time here, hit subscribe. You won't want to miss where this goes. The rain had been falling for 3 hours straight when Noah Bennett pulled into his driveway and saw her. He almost didn't. He was running on 4 hours of sleep, a half-eaten protein bar, and the particular kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from working too hard. It comes from carrying too much for too long. His shift at the base had run late. Again. His daughter Mia's babysitter had texted him twice asking when he'd be home. Again. And the left rear tire on his truck had been slowly losing pressure all week, which he'd been meaning to fix, and hadn't, because there weren't enough hours in a day for a man doing everything alone. He cut the engine. That's when he saw her. She was sitting on the curb in front of the house next door. Not standing, not pacing, sitting. In the rain. On the wet concrete edge of the curb, like she had been placed there by someone who expected her to simply disappear. There was a suitcase beside her. Not a big one. The kind you take for a weekend trip. Like whoever packed it, or whoever was packed, hadn't been given enough time to think it through. Noah sat in his truck for a moment. He told himself he was tired. He told himself it wasn't his business. He told himself she probably had someone coming to pick her up. A sister, a friend, someone. He'd never spoken more than 30 words to the woman next door in the 7 months she'd lived there. He knew her name was Lena. He knew her husband Marcus drove a black Mercedes and kept odd hours. He knew Mia had once asked why the lady next door looked sad when she watered her flowers. He'd said, "Some people just look like that, baby." He hadn't believed it even then. Noah got out of the truck. The rain hit him immediately, cold hard, relentless. He pulled up the collar of his jacket and crossed the small stretch of grass that separated their driveways. Up close, she was worse than he'd thought. The left side of her face was swollen beneath the eye. Not dramatically, not Hollywood style. Just the quiet, ugly truth of it. A bruise that was still deciding how dark it wanted to get. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her shoes, nice shoes, the kind you wear to work, were soaked through. She hadn't looked up. "Hey," Noah said. Nothing. "Hey." Louder. She flinched, hard. Her whole body jerked sideways like she'd been startled awake from a nightmare, except she was already in one. When she finally looked up at him, her eyes did something he hadn't expected. They didn't ask for help. They didn't plead. They just evaluated him. Took in his face, his uniform jacket, the distance between them. Measuring threat. Measuring escape routes. That's not fear, Noah thought. That's training. That's what you do when fear has become normal. He took a step back. Deliberately. Gave her space. "I'm Noah," he said. "I live right there." He pointed to his house. "I'm not going to bother you. I just want to make sure you're okay." She looked at him for a long moment. "I'm fine," she said. The word fine had never carried so much weight. He glanced at the house behind her. All the lights were on. Through the front window, he could see movement, the particular movement of someone rearranging a space, making it theirs. "Did he—" Noah started. "He's allowed to," she said. Her voice was flat. Not defeated. Just stated. Like a legal fact. It's his name on the lease. Noah stood there in the rain. She stared at the street. He should have gone inside. He knew that. He had a daughter waiting. He had a babysitter who needed to go home. He had a life held together with duct tape and discipline, and adding anything else to it was pure stupidity. "Come inside," he said. She looked at him. "What?" "I've got a spare room. Come inside." The silence that followed wasn't a pause. It was a full examination. She was looking at him, the way someone looks at a locked door. they're not sure is safe to open, not because they don't want what's behind it, but because they've been burned before by doors that looked safe. "I don't know you," she said. "You know my name, you know where I live, and—" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet, slid out his military ID, held it out toward her in the rain. "If anything happens to you in my house, there's a full federal record of exactly who I am." She stared at the ID. She didn't take it. But she looked at it long enough to read it. Then she picked up her suitcase and stood up. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say okay. She just stood up and walked past him toward his front door, and he fell into step beside her. And that was how it started. Not with a conversation, or a decision, or any kind of plan. Just a door opening. Inside the house was warm. That was the first thing she noticed, not just temperature warm. There was a lamp on in the living room, throwing honey-colored light across the floor. There was a drawing on the refrigerator held up by a pineapple magnet, a crayon drawing of a man and a small girl holding hands under a yellow sun. There were dishes in the drying rack and small sneakers by the door, and the faint smell of something that had been cooked for dinner still hanging in the air. It smelled like a home. Lena stood in the entryway and felt something move through her chest that she couldn't name. Not relief. Something older than relief. Something she hadn't felt in a very long time. The babysitter, a teenage girl from down the street named Kayla, came around the corner from the hallway, backpack over one shoulder, already reaching for her coat. "She went down about 20 minutes ago," Kayla said to Noah, then noticed Lena and stopped. "This is my neighbor," Noah said simply. "She'll be staying in the spare room for a bit." Kayla looked at Lena's face, at the bruise, at the suitcase. She was 17 years old, and she read the situation in about 3 seconds. "Okay," she said. That was it. She took her money from Noah, said goodnight, and left. Noah locked the door behind her. Then there was silence. "The bathroom's down the hall," he said. "Spare room's the last door on the left. I don't have much, but there are extra towels in the closet." "Noah." He stopped. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He thought about it. Really thought about it, standing there in his damp jacket with his tired eyes and his quiet house. "I don't know," he said finally. "Maybe because nobody did it for me when I needed it." He paused. "Get dry. Sleep. We can figure out the rest in the morning." He turned and went down the hall to his own room. Lena stood there for another moment alone in his kitchen, listening to the rain against the windows. Then she picked up her suitcase and went to the last door on the left. She was gone by 6 a.m., or she tried to be. She'd been up since 4, lying in the dark on the spare bed, which was firm and clean, and nothing like the battlefield her own bed had become, and she'd made up her mind. She would leave before he woke up. She would leave a note. She would figure out a shelter, or call her sister in Columbus, or do something that didn't involve depending on a stranger. She was in the kitchen with her coat on and her suitcase handle extended when she heard him. "Coffee's ready." She turned. He was already dressed. Fully dressed, work clothes, jacket, boots. Like he'd been up for a while. "I know what you were doing," he said. He poured 2 mugs without asking, set one on the counter within her reach, and leaned back against the opposite counter with his own. "You were leaving. I'm not your responsibility." He looked at her for a moment. "No," he said. "You're not." She waited for the but. "My daughter's not my responsibility either," he said. "Not in any legal, obligated kind of way. Her mother left when Mia was 2. Nobody made me stay. Nobody could have made me go." He took a drink of his coffee. "But I show up every day. Not because I have to. Because she needs someone who does." Lena didn't move. "I'm not saying you're like my daughter," he said quickly, almost careful about it. "I'm saying sometimes people need someone to just not leave, and I'm not going anywhere, so." He set his mug down. "The coffee's there. The room's there. Stay as long as you need to." He grabbed his keys off the hook by the door. "There's cereal in the cabinet for Mia when she wakes up. She likes the one with the red box. Don't let her con you into the sugary stuff she'll try." He opened the door. "Noah." He stopped again. turned. She was still standing there with her coat on, but her hand had let go of the suitcase handle. "Thank you," she said. He nodded once, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Then he was gone. Mia appeared at 7:15 in pajamas, with clouds on them, hair sticking up on one side, dragging a stuffed elephant by its ear. She stopped in the kitchen doorway when she saw Lena. 7 years old, dark eyes exactly like her father's. Serious in the way little kids are serious when they've spent a lot of time around adults who are tired. "You're not Kayla," she said. "No," Lena said. "I'm Lena. I'm your neighbor. Your dad said I could stay here for a little while." Mia considered this with the gravity of a tiny judge. "Did something happen to your face?" she asked. Lena touched her cheek. She'd almost forgotten about it. Almost. "Yeah," she said. "Something happened. Does it hurt?" "Not as much as it did?" Mia nodded slowly, processing. "My dad got hurt once, on deployment. He didn't tell me, but I saw the scar." She dragged the elephant further into the kitchen. "He said sometimes people just get hurt, and it's not their fault." Lena felt something catch in her throat. "Your dad sounds smart," she managed. "He is," Mia said. "But he burns everything he cooks." She looked at the stove, then back at Lena. "Can you make eggs?" "Whoa." The first week was like that. Careful, quiet. Everyone moving around each other like they were learning the choreography of a dance. None of them had rehearsed. Noah worked long shifts, sometimes leaving at 5 in the morning, sometimes not home until after 9 at night. When he was gone, the house was Lena and Mia's world. Lena cooked because it gave her something to do, really cooked the way her grandmother had taught her, the way she'd stopped doing years ago, because Marcus had always complained about the smell or the mess or something. She made chicken soup on a Tuesday. Real soup from scratch with bones simmering on the stove for hours. When Noah came home that night, delayed, exhausted, still carrying whatever the day had loaded onto him, he stopped in the doorway of the kitchen and just stood there. "What is that?" he said. "Dinner," she said. "Sit down." He sat down. He ate 2 bowls without speaking, and when he finally looked up, there was something in his face she didn't have a name for yet. Something that looked less like gratitude and more like relief. Like a man who had been quietly starving not for food, but for this. For a table that had someone else at it. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I know," she said. "I wanted to." Mia looked up from her bowl. She made it from real chicken, Dad, not the can. "I can tell," he said. And for just a moment, just 3 or 4 seconds, the house felt like something it maybe hadn't felt in a long time. Full. But outside those walls, it wasn't quiet. Lena's phone had been buzzing since that first morning. She'd turned the sound off on day 2. She didn't delete the messages because she didn't have a lawyer yet, but she would need to see them. She'd read enough of them to know what they said. "Come home. This is embarrassing. You're making something out of nothing. You're staying with a man. Real nice, Lena. Real classy. I'll make sure everyone knows." She didn't respond. But she knew Marcus. She knew his ego. She knew the particular way he needed to win every single thing, even the things he'd started. Even the ones he'd broken. He wasn't going to let this be over just because she'd walked away. One evening she was washing dishes when she heard Noah come in from the garage. She could tell by the sound of him, the particular weight of his footstep, the way he set his keys down, that something was different. "Hey," she called. "Dinner's keeping warm in the oven." He didn't answer right away. She turned. He was standing in the kitchen doorway, still in his jacket. He had his phone in his hand. His face had gone very still in the way that she was starting to learn meant he was containing something. "What happened?" she asked. "Got a call today," he said. "Someone filed a complaint about me with Base Command. Anonymous. Said I was..." He paused. Chose the word carefully. "Harboring a married woman." Said it was conduct unbecoming. The plate in Lena's hand was suddenly very heavy. "Noah." "It's being looked into," he said. "I'm not worried about it." But his jaw was tight. "I just thought you should know." She set the plate down. Her hands were shaking slightly. "It was Marcus," she said. She didn't say it like a question. "Probably. I'll leave," she said. "Tonight. I'll call my sister. Lena." His voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't even raised. But it stopped her completely. "If you leave," he said, "he wins. And whatever game he's playing right now, the only way it works is if you run." He held her gaze. "I've been in situations where the right move felt like retreat. And I've been in situations where retreat was the worst possible choice." He paused. "This is the second kind." She stared at him. "I'm not Mia's father," she said quietly. "You don't owe me this." "No," he agreed. "I don't." He finally moved, crossed to the oven, pulled it open, looked at whatever was inside. "Smells good." She watched him. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met," she said, "or the most stubborn." He glanced back at her. And there just barely was something at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile, but close. "In the Navy," he said. "We call that the same thing." Mia had been watching all of it. Kids do that. They watch the things adults think they're hiding. They sit at the kitchen table with their homework and their juice boxes and their stuffed animals, and they see everything. They feel the weight of a room the moment it shifts. They notice when someone laughs for real versus when someone laughs to fill silence. Mia noticed everything. One night after Noah had gone to bed and Lena was folding laundry on the couch, she'd taken over the laundry because it was something she could do, and she needed things she could do. Mia appeared in the living room doorway. "You're sad," Mia said. Not accusatory, just factual. "Sometimes," Lena admitted. Mia came and sat beside her on the couch. She was holding her stuffed elephant, the one she dragged everywhere. "Me too sometimes," she said. "Dad says it's okay to be sad. He says the sad doesn't go away, but it gets less loud." Lena looked at her. "Your dad says a lot of smart things," she said. "He didn't used to," Mia said matter-of-factly. "Kayla says he used to never talk, like not to anyone, after my mom left." She paused. "I think he talks more now." Lena was quiet for a moment. "Why do you think that is?" she asked. Mia shrugged with the profound casualness of a 7-year-old. "Probably because you're here." She slid off the couch and padded back down the hall toward her room. Lena sat with the unfolded laundry in her lap and the quiet of the house around her. Outside, the rain had started again. She didn't feel it the same way she had that first night. She was inside now. The complaint filed against Noah didn't go away quietly. 3 days after he told Lena about it, he was called into his commanding officer's office, Commander Ray Haskell, a broad-shouldered man who had known Noah since his second deployment, and who did not, as a general rule, waste time on pleasantries. Noah sat across from him in the straight-backed chair that every sailor learns to sit in spine upright, hands resting easy face, giving nothing away, and waited. Haskell looked at the file on his desk. Then he looked at Noah. "You want to tell me what's going on?" he said. "My neighbor needed a place to stay," Noah said. "I gave her one. Her husband is saying otherwise. Her husband," Noah said carefully, "is the reason she needed a place to stay." Haskell studied him for a long moment. The kind of study that comes from 20-plus years of reading men under pressure. "This woman," he said, "she's not. There's nothing going on." "She's in the spare room," Noah said. "She cooks dinner. She helps my daughter with homework. That's the whole story. Her husband is threatening to take this to the base inspector." Noah didn't move. "He can do that." "Noah." "Sir," Noah said. "With respect, I've served 12 years, 2 combat deployments. I've never had a complaint against my name. I'm not going to displace a woman with a bruise on her face because her husband is embarrassed." He paused. "If that's conduct unbecoming, I'll accept whatever comes with it." Haskell leaned back in his chair. He pressed 2 fingers to his mouth, looked at the file again, then he closed it. Get me documentation, he said. Whatever she's got. Texts, photos, any police report if there is one. I'm not going to let some civilian bully walk into my base and push one of my people around. But I need something to work with. Noah exhaled slowly, the kind you don't let show. Yes, sir. And Noah. Haskell looked up. Tell her to talk to someone. Legally. A shelter advocate? A lawyer. Someone. Because whatever this is, it needs to be handled through the right channels before it gets uglier. It's going to get uglier either way, Noah said. Haskell nodded once. Yeah, he said. It usually does. He told Lena that night. She was at the kitchen table when he got home, laptop open, a legal notepad beside it covered in her handwriting. She'd been doing research, he could tell by the particular focused tension in her shoulders, the way she was writing things down, instead of typing them, like she needed the physical act of it to make things feel real. She looked up when he came in. How bad? She asked. He sat down across from her, didn't take off his jacket. Not bad, but we need to get ahead of it. I heard from a legal aid office today, she said. She slid the notepad toward him. They can take my case. Pro bono. I have an appointment Thursday. He looked at the notepad. It was a list, dates, incidents, descriptions. Her handwriting was small and precise, and it went down the page for a full 2 sheets. He didn't read the details. That wasn't his place. But he understood what it had cost her to write them down. You didn't sleep last night, he said. She looked at him, not surprised that he'd noticed, just surprised that he'd said it. No, she said. Mia either, he said. She came to my room at 2 a.m, said she heard you walking around. He paused. She wanted to go check on you. I told her you just needed some quiet. Lena pressed her lips together. I woke her up, she said. I'm sorry. She wasn't scared, he said. She was worried. There's a difference. He leaned forward, arms on the table. You don't have to hold it together perfectly in this house, Lena. You don't have to be fine all the time. Not here. She looked at him. It was the way she looked at him, sometimes measuring again, but differently than that first night on the curb. Not measuring threat, measuring truth. Trying to figure out if he meant what he said, or if it was just something people said. Marcus always wanted me to be fine, she said quietly. Even when I wasn't. Especially when I wasn't. If I cried, he said I was dramatic. If I was quiet, he said I was punishing him. She stopped. After a while, you stop knowing how to be anything other than fine. Noah was quiet for a moment. I spent the first year after Mia's mother left, he said slowly, telling everyone I was fine. My CO, my guys, my mom. Fine, fine, fine. He exhaled. And meanwhile, I was putting Mia to bed at night and sitting on the kitchen floor afterward because I didn't have enough energy to make it to the couch. Not crying, just nothing. Just completely empty. He looked at his hands. That's not fine. That's just a word we use when we don't have access to the real one. The kitchen was quiet. What's the real one? She asked. Surviving, he said. Just surviving. Which is enough, until it can be more. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked down at the notepad, all those dates and incidents, all that carefully documented damage. I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad, she said. That's the thing nobody tells you. How long you can convince yourself that it isn't that bad. Because the alternative, admitting that it is, means admitting that you stayed, and you don't want to be the person who stayed. You left, he said. He threw me out. You left, he said again. With a suitcase, in the rain. You didn't go back. He held her gaze. That's leaving. She didn't answer, but something in her face shifted. Thursday, he said, nodding at the notepad. Legal aid. I'll drive you. You don't have to. Lena. His voice was patient, firm. I know I don't have to. Stop giving me outs I'm not looking for. She almost smiled. Not quite. but the almost was something. Okay, she said. Thursday. Marcus showed up on a Wednesday. It was late afternoon. Mia was still at school. Lena was in the backyard. Noah had a small patio she'd started sitting on in the afternoons just to get outside, just to feel air that wasn't recycled through the house when she heard the car. She knew the sound of that engine before she even stood up. She came around the side of the house, and he was already out of the Mercedes, standing in the driveway, dressed like he'd come from work, suit jacket collar, open the particular performance of someone who wants to look reasonable while being anything but. Marcus Brooks was 41, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that photographed well and charmed strangers. He had a way of standing that took up space, not aggressive exactly, just expansive, like he'd decided the air around him belonged to him by default. He saw her. There she is, he said, like she was a child who'd wandered off. You need to leave, she said. I need to talk to my wife, he said. He looked at the house. This where you're staying? This is what you traded down to? He looked back at her. Lena, come on. This is embarrassing. For who? For both of us. He took a step toward her. Look, I overreacted. I know that. But you don't need to be out here playing house with some Navy guy to make your point. Come home. We'll talk. We're not talking, she said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. I have a lawyer. Something moved in his face. Quick. There and gone. A lawyer, he repeated. Legal aid. Thursday. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, not warmly. The other kind. The kind that meant he was recalculating. You think a legal aid lawyer is going to do anything? He said. Lena, I have 3 people on retainer. You want to go down that road? He shook his head. All those years, all the things I gave you. You're going to throw that away for what? She said. For a spare room and someone who doesn't call me dramatic when I cry. The words came out harder than she'd planned. That's what you gave me, Marcus. You gave me someone who made me feel like I was crazy for needing basic things. Basic things, he said. His voice had dropped now, gone cold. I gave you everything. You gave me everything you wanted me to have, she said. That's not the same thing. He took another step toward her. And that was when the front door of Noah's house opened. Noah stepped out. He hadn't changed out of his work clothes yet, still in his uniform, still carrying his jacket in one hand, like he'd just gotten home and heard voices. He stood on the small porch and looked at the driveway and didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Marcus looked at him, did his calculation, took in the uniform, the build, the fact that Noah was standing there with the particular stillness of someone who has learned that stillness is its own kind of force. You the guy, Marcus said. Noah looked at him for a moment. I'm the neighbor, he said. Right. Marcus turned back to Lena. This is what this is then, okay. He nodded slowly, the way he always nodded when he was performing calm he didn't feel. I want you to know that I'm being very patient right now, but there's a limit. There is, Noah said. Marcus turned. Excuse me. She said she wants you to leave, Noah said. That's a limit. He held the man's gaze without any heat in it, no anger, just absolute clarity. This is a private residence. You weren't invited here. You can leave on your own, or I can help you with that decision. Marcus stared at him. Is that a threat? Marcus said. No, Noah said. It's a description of what's going to happen. The silence stretched. Marcus was not used to this. That was obvious. He was used to being the one who held stillness as a weapon, used to being the calmest, most controlled person in any room, the one who made others feel off balance. And here was someone doing it better without effort, without even raising his voice. He looked at Lena again. One last calculation. This isn't over, he said. No, she agreed. It's not. That's what Thursday is for. Marcus straightened his jacket, got back in his car. He sat there for 30 seconds, long enough to make a point, short enough to not look like he was stalling, and then backed out of the driveway and drove away. Lena stood in the driveway until she couldn't hear the engine anymore. Then her legs went a little soft beneath her, and she put one hand out to steady herself against Noah's truck. He was beside her in 3 steps, not touching her, just there. "Breathe," he said. "I'm breathing." "Slower." She breathed slower. "I didn't hear you pull up," she said. "I was in the garage," he said. "I heard him from there." He paused. "You did good." "I was terrified." "Yeah," he said. "That's why you did good. Easy things don't take courage." She looked at him. He was watching the street where the Mercedes had gone, jaw set, eyes calm. "He's not done," she said. "No." Noah agreed. "He's not." "Are you scared about your career?" He thought about it. Actually thought about it, didn't just throw reassurance at her. "I'm careful," he said finally. "About a lot of things. But not about this." He looked at her. "I learned a long time ago that there's a short list of things worth standing firm on. You figure out what's on that list, and then you don't move." He paused. "You're on that list now. Mia decided that before I did." She stared at him. "Mia? She told me 2 days in that you were staying," he said. I didn't disagree. Thursday came. The legal aid office was in a brick building downtown. Small, efficient, covered in printed pamphlets and posters about rights and resources. The woman who met them was named Patricia 50s, reading glasses on a beaded chain, with the particular energy of someone who had been doing this work for decades and had made peace with the weight of it by becoming very, very good at it. She had Lena's file open before they'd fully sat down. Noah stayed in the waiting room. He sat in a plastic chair for an hour and 20 minutes, elbows on his knees, scrolling through nothing on his phone. A woman across from him was crying quietly into a paper cup of coffee. A man in a construction vest read the same page of a magazine 3 times without turning it. Everyone in the room had the particular posture of people who have come to a place they never expected to need. When Lena came out, she looked different. Not better exactly, but more solid, like she'd been walking on shifting ground for weeks and had just found something firm to stand on. "She thinks we have a strong case," she said. "Yeah. She wants to file for an emergency protective order. She says the texts alone," she stopped, pressed her lips together. "She said the texts alone document a pattern of control and intimidation that the courts take seriously." She sat down next to him. "I didn't know that. I thought it had to be worse. I thought it had to be more before they'd do anything." "It's enough," he said. "What he did, it's enough." She looked at her hands. "She also asked me something," Lena said. "About where I was staying, whether I felt safe." She paused. I said yes before she finished the sentence. He didn't say anything. "I wanted you to know that," she said. "That's all." Mia had started leaving things for Lena, little things. A drawing of 3 people, 2 tall, 1 small, under a yellow sun, placed on Lena's pillow. A flower she'd picked from the yard set in a glass of water on the bathroom shelf. Once a note written in careful 7-year-old letters, "You smell nice, and your soup is the best I ever had." With soup spelled soup. Lena kept all of them. She kept them in the small zippered pocket of her suitcase, the only bag she had. The bag she'd stopped treating like it was temporary. She kept them there, and when the nights got long and the thoughts got loud, which they still did, which probably they would for a while, she'd open the pocket and take out the drawings, and the dried flour, and the note that said, "Soup." It helped more than she could explain. She told Mia about it one afternoon coming back from school pickup. She'd started doing that walking down to the bus stop with the other parents watching for Mia's face in the window of the bus, feeling something warm and terrifying every time the little girl's face lit up seeing her. "I keep your drawings," she said. Mia took her hand on the sidewalk. Naturally, without thinking, just reached up and took it. Why? Because they make me happy. Oh. Mia considered this. My dad keeps them too. He has a whole stack in his bedside drawer. He thinks I don't know. Lena smiled. Maybe we won't tell him that we know. Mia nodded seriously. Probably better. They walked the rest of the way home in comfortable silence, hand in hand. That night after Mia was asleep, Lena found Noah on the back patio. He was sitting in one of the two lawn chairs out there. She'd cleaned them up a few days ago, hosed off the pollen, and straightened them. Both added a small table between them, the way she'd started quietly doing things around the house that she couldn't help doing. And he had a beer. He wasn't really drinking, and he was looking at nothing in particular. She sat in the other chair. She asleep? He asked, before her head hit the pillow. Lena pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. She made me promise to come to her school play next month. She's been talking about that play for 3 weeks, Noah said. Apparently, she's a tree. An important tree, Lena corrected. She was very specific about that. He made a sound that was almost a laugh. She was collecting those almost laughs. They were becoming easier to find. They sat like that for a while, not talking, and it wasn't the awkward silence of two strangers with nothing to say. It was the other kind. Can I ask you something? She said. Yeah. When Mia's mother left, when that happened, she paused, making sure she was asking carefully. Did you see it coming? He was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he said. I did. That's maybe the worst part of it. I knew it was coming, and I didn't know how to stop it, and I kept thinking if I just held on long enough, He stopped. She needed something I couldn't give her. I don't know what it was. I still don't. She needed it, and I didn't have it, and she found someone who did. I'm sorry, Lena said. It was a long time ago, he said. Mia was the thing I had left, and I just locked in on that. Just made her the whole thing, which is good. And also probably not entirely healthy. He looked at the sky. Haskell told me once that I needed to stop running on purpose and start running on something else. I didn't know what he meant for about 3 years. What did he mean? That purpose keeps you going, he said. But it doesn't fill a house. He paused. It keeps you surviving, like I said, surviving, until it can be more. She heard her own words from earlier in the week come back in his voice. And now? She asked quietly. He looked at her. Not the evaluating look. Not the measuring look. Something quieter than that. Something that had been there for a while, she thought, but that neither of them had looked at directly. Now, he said, it's more. The word landed between them and stayed there. She didn't look away. Neither did he. And then from inside the house, small and sleepy, and perfectly timed, Mia's voice drifted through the back door. Can you come sing the thing? She'd asked Lena to sing a song twice this week. A lullaby Lena had hummed while folding laundry, just absent-mindedly, and Mia had latched onto it the way children latch onto things that make them feel safe. Lena stood up, looked at Noah. The thing? He said. Not asking, just acknowledging. The thing, she confirmed. She went inside. He sat in the chair and listened to the sound of her voice, low quiet, muffled through walls and distance, as she sang Mia back to sleep. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, the house didn't feel empty. It felt the exact right size. The protective order came through on a Friday. Patricia called Lena at 9:47 in the morning, and Lena was standing in Noah's kitchen with a dish towel in her hand when she heard the words. She didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there with the phone against her ear and the dish towel going still in her fingers. Lena, Patricia said, you still with me? Yeah, she said. Yeah, I'm here. The order is effective immediately. He cannot come within 500 feet of you, and that includes this address. If he violates it, you call 911 first, and my office second. Do you understand? I understand. This doesn't end the case, Patricia said. This is protection while we build. But it means that visit last Wednesday if he comes back, he's not just a bad husband anymore. He's a criminal defendant. After she hung up, Lena stood in the kitchen for a long time. Then she sat down on the floor. Not because her legs gave out. Not because she was falling apart. She sat down deliberately, back against the cabinet, knees pulled up, and she let herself feel the full weight of what had just happened. The protective order wasn't a victory. Not yet. But it was the first thing in years that had said officially, legally in language, a court would recognize that what happened to her was real. That she wasn't dramatic. That she wasn't making something out of nothing. That she had been right to leave. She was still sitting on the floor when Mia came through the back door from the yard, shoes muddy, holding something in her cupped hands. She stopped when she saw Lena. "Are you hurt?" Mia asked immediately. "No," Lena said. "I'm okay. I got some good news, and sometimes good news hits you funny." Mia considered this with her usual seriousness. Then she came and sat down on the floor beside Lena, back against the same cabinet, knees, up in a mirror of her posture, natural, easy, like it was the most normal thing in the world to sit on a kitchen floor together. "What's in your hands?" Lena asked. Mia opened her palms carefully. A caterpillar, bright green, making its slow way across her fingers. "I'm calling him Gerald," Mia said. "He was on the porch railing. I think he was lonely." "Gerald's a good name," Lena said. "He's going to be a butterfly eventually," Mia said. "But right now he's just a caterpillar, so he doesn't know that yet." Lena looked at the caterpillar making its patient way across Mia's small hands. "Does he seem scared?" she asked. Mia looked. "No," she said. "I think he's just going. One step, and then the next one." Lena nodded slowly. "Yeah," she said. "I think that's the whole trick." She told Noah that night. He came home later than usual, a briefing that had run long he'd texted, and she had dinner waiting, and when he sat down, she slid her phone across the table with the confirmation email from Patricia's office open on the screen. He read it again. "Good," he said. The word was quiet and complete. "Patricia says it doesn't mean he'll stop," she said. "It just means if he doesn't stop, the consequences are different." "He'll push it," Noah said. He wasn't saying it to scare her, just stating what he already knew about men like Marcus, the way you state weather. Men like him don't take paperwork seriously until the paperwork has teeth. "I know," she said. "I'm ready for that." He looked at her across the table. She'd changed in the 3 weeks she'd been here. He'd been watching it happen the way you watch a season change, not in any single moment, but in the accumulation of them. The way she sat at the table now, versus the way she'd sat those first few days, shoulders slightly curved, making herself smaller, like she was still apologizing for taking up space. The way she answered questions directly now. The way she'd stopped hedging everything she said with, "I don't know," and "maybe," and "is that okay?" She was coming back to herself. He could see it. He didn't say any of that. He just picked up his fork. "Patricia's good," he said. "I looked her up." Lena raised an eyebrow. "You looked her up." "Made some calls," he said, without apology. "She's handled 40-something cases like yours in the last 5 years. She's got a good record." "You ran background on my lawyer." "I ran background on the person handling your protection." He met her eyes. "Different thing." She stared at him for a moment. Then slowly she shook her head. "You are something else, Noah Bennett," she said. "So I've been told," he said, and went back to eating. The thing about Marcus that Lena had always known, but never said out loud, not even to herself, not really, was that he didn't lose gracefully. Some people, when they lose something, go quiet. They absorb it and move on, or they absorb it and break quietly, where no one can see. Marcus was not that kind of person. Marcus was the kind of person who, when he lost something, decided that the problem was the existence of losing rather than the fact that he had lost. And he went about addressing that problem systematically. She knew this. She'd watched him do it with job situations, with friendships, with family disputes. She'd watched him apply his particular brand of controlled strategic pressure to every situation until it bent the way he wanted it to. She'd just never been the situation before. The first thing he did within 48 hours of the protective order was call her mother. Lena's mother, Diane, lived in Savannah, was 72 years old, had a heart that worked at about 60% capacity, and a capacity for worry that worked at about 300. She was not a bad woman. She was not a cruel woman. But she was a woman who had been raised to believe that a marriage was a covenant, that a wife's job was patience, and that problems between a husband and wife were best solved internally quietly, and with significant compromise from the wife. Lena saw her mother's number on her phone on a Saturday morning and felt her stomach drop before she even answered. Lena Marie. Mom. Marcus called me, Diane said. He's very upset. I know he's upset, Mom. He said you left. He said you're living with a man. I'm living in a spare room, Lena said. In a safe house. Because my husband threw me out in the rain and then filed a harassment complaint against the man who gave me a place to stay. Silence. He said you provoked him, Diane said carefully. Something inside Lena went very quiet. The old version of her, the one who had learned to manage herself down until she fit into whatever shape the situation required, would have backpedaled here. Would have said, well, it's complicated, or I know how it looks. Would have started building a version of events that made everyone more comfortable. Mom, she said, look at the left side of my face. I can't see you, Lena. We're on the... I know. But if you could, you'd see a bruise that was there for 11 days. I documented it. I have photographs. I have a protective order signed by a judge, because a lawyer looked at what Marcus has said to me over text message and said it qualifies as a documented pattern of control and intimidation. She stopped, kept her voice level. I did not provoke him. I stayed for 4 years waiting for it to get better, and it didn't. And then it did this, and I left. That's the story, Mom. That's all of it. The silence was longer this time. I didn't know it was like that, Diane said finally, quietly. I know, Lena said. I didn't tell you. I didn't tell anyone. She sat down on the edge of the spare bed. He was very careful about what he let people see. Her mother was quiet for so long that Lena checked the screen to see if the call had dropped. Are you safe? Diane said finally. Yes. This man you're staying with. He's a Navy serviceman. He's a single father. He's the best person I've met in years. She paused. He gave me his spare room and drove me to a legal aid appointment and didn't ask for a single thing in return. You don't have to worry about him. Another pause. I want to come see you, Diane said. Not yet. It's not the timing isn't right yet, but soon. Okay. Her mother's voice had gone soft. Okay, baby. After she hung up, Lena sat on the edge of the bed for a while. The conversation had cost something, not in a bad way, in the way that telling the truth always costs something when you've been keeping it for a long time. Like releasing pressure from something sealed too tight. She heard Mia in the hallway outside her door singing something under her breath, a song from her school play, which she had been rehearsing with increasing intensity for 2 weeks now. Lena opened the door. Mia was in full performance mode, arms out, very serious. How's the tree coming? Lena asked. I have 3 lines now, Mia said. Miss Carpenter gave me more because she said I had the best posture. The most important tree, Lena said. Obviously, Mia said, and went back to singing. The second thing Marcus did was harder to see coming. Noah got a call on a Tuesday evening from a number he didn't recognize. He answered it in the driveway just back from the bass keys, still in his hand. The voice on the other end was male professional, precise, the kind of voice that has been trained to deliver information in a way that sounds casual while being neither. Mr. Bennett, my name is Daniel Cho. I'm an attorney representing Marcus Brooks. I'm calling as a professional courtesy. Noah didn't say anything. He waited. My client is prepared to withdraw the complaint filed with your base commander, Cho said. He is also prepared to make a financial gesture, a not insignificant one, toward any inconvenience this situation may have caused you professionally. Noah leaned against his truck. In exchange for, he said. In exchange for your encouragement of Mrs. Brooks to return to mediation with her husband, rather than pursuing the current legal route. A pause. My client feels that the situation has become unnecessarily adversarial and that there's a path forward that benefits everyone, including you. Including me, Noah repeated. The complaint with your commander could have real implications, Cho said. Not a threat, stated like weather. My client is offering to make that go away along with some additional consideration in exchange for a reasonable request. Noah looked at his front door. Through the small window beside it, he could see light the kitchen light warm and the shape of movement inside. Mr. Cho, he said. Yes. I'm going to ask you a professional question, and I'd like a professional answer. He kept his voice even. Are you aware of the protective order currently in place against your client? A brief pause. I am. Then you're aware that this call, if it can be established that it was made at your client's direction, may constitute an attempt to interfere with a protected party's legal proceedings. He paused. I'm not a lawyer, but I've spent 12 years working alongside JAG officers, and I know what that looks like. The silence on the other end was different now. I'd encourage you to speak with your client about whether this call was a good idea, Noah said. And I'd encourage you to not call this number again. He hung up. He stood in the driveway for a moment, phone in hand, and did the thing he'd learned to do in situations that required containment. He breathed, counted back from 10, and let the anger settle into something quieter and more useful. Then he went inside. Lena was at the stove. Mia was at the table. The kitchen smelled like garlic and something that made the whole house feel occupied in the way that mattered. Hey, Lena said, glancing back. 20 minutes. Okay, he said. He sat down at the table. Mia showed him a worksheet she'd finished. He looked at it and told her it was good and meant it. He helped her with the 2 problems she'd gotten wrong without making it a lesson. He let dinner happen the way it happened every night now, this ordinary, extraordinary thing. Then, after Mia was in bed, he told Lena about the call. She sat very still while he talked. He told it plainly, all of it, no softening of the edges. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. He's escalating, she said. He's panicking, Noah said. Escalating feels like control. It's actually the opposite. He's going to do something, she said. Something worse. Probably, he said. Which is why you need to call Patricia first thing tomorrow and tell her about this call. I'll write up exactly what was said and sign it. She looked at him. You remembered it word for word. Force of habit, he said. When something matters, you pay attention. She shook her head slowly. Most people would have taken the deal. Most people weren't the ones he needed to take it, he said. He needed you to take it. That's the whole point. He can't get to you directly, so he came for me. He looked at her steadily. He thought I had a price. He was wrong. Why? She said. Not challenging, genuinely asking. Why aren't you scared of him? He thought about this the way he thought about most serious things, directly without performance. I've been scared, he said. Real scared. Not of men like Marcus. Men like Marcus count on other people's fear. They build their whole lives on it. Take away the fear, and there's not much left. He paused. I'm more scared of being the person who walks away from something that matters because it got inconvenient. That's the fear that keeps me honest. She was looking at him with that look again, the one that was no longer measuring distance. Noah, she said. Yeah. I need you to hear something. He waited. I came here with nothing, she said. 1 bag and a bruise and about $40 in my own account because he controlled the rest. I was the least capable version of myself. She stopped. But I'm not going to be that person forever. I'm already not that person. And part of the reason for that, a big part, is because of how you've handled all of this. She met his eyes. I'm not going to be able to repay it. I know that. But I need you to know that I see it. What it costs you. I see it. He held her gaze. It doesn't cost what you think it does, he said quietly. What does it cost? He looked at her for a long moment. Nothing I wasn't already paying, he said. 3 days later, Mia had her school play. Noah took the afternoon off, something he almost never did. something that required 2 forms and a conversation with Haskell, who had waved him off before he'd finished explaining. They sat in the 3rd row of the school auditorium, Noah with his long legs folded into a chair built for someone considerably smaller, Lena beside him with her phone ready to take video, even though Noah already had his out. The play was about seasons. Each class represented a different one. Mia's class was spring. She was a tree, the most important tree. When she walked out in her green costume, felt leaves attached to a brown long-sleeve shirt, a headband with a felt blossom on it, and found their faces in the audience, her whole expression changed. Not a wave. Not a smile exactly. Just a recognition deep and certain that her people were there. Noah's jaw went tight in the way it sometimes did when something hit him harder than he'd prepared for. Lena put her hand briefly on his arm, not saying anything, just there. Mia delivered her 3 lines with the gravity and projection of someone who had been practicing them for 3 weeks, which she had. The auditorium was full of the particular noise of proud parents and fidgeting siblings. But when Mia spoke, Noah heard every word. After in the parking lot, Mia came flying out the side door still in her costume, felt leaves bouncing, and launched herself at Noah with the specific aerodynamics of a 7-year-old who has calculated that she will definitely be caught. He caught her. "You were perfect," he said into her hair. "I know," she said matter-of-factly, then immediately scrambled down and grabbed Lena's hand. "Did you see when I said the 2nd line? Because Miss Carpenter said that was the important one, and I think I said it the best." "You said it the best," Lena confirmed. "Absolutely the best tree." "The most important tree," Mia corrected. "The most important tree," Lena agreed solemnly. Mia beamed. Then she grabbed both their hands, one on each side, and pulled them toward the car with the particular energy of a child who has just performed well and now requires celebration in the form of dinner at the place with the good mac and cheese. Noah caught Lena's eyes over the top of Mia's head. He didn't say anything. She didn't either. But she didn't let go of Mia's hand, and neither did he. The call from Commander Haskell came the following Monday morning at 6:15 a.m., before Noah had left for the base. He stepped out onto the porch to take it. The morning was cool still, early the street quiet. "The complaint's been formally dropped," Haskell said without preamble. "Brooks withdrew it late Friday. I've got the paperwork." Noah exhaled. "Okay. You should know that I would have backed you either way," Haskell said. "I want that on record." "I know," Noah said. "Thank you, sir." "The lawyer who called you," Haskell said. "Patricia's office know about that. I gave them a full statement last week." "Good." A pause. "How's the woman?" "Stronger," Noah said. "Every day." "And the little one?" "She was a tree in the school play on Thursday," Noah said. "Most important tree." He could hear the almost laugh on the other end. "Good man," Haskell said, and hung up. Noah stood on the porch for a moment after. The neighborhood was waking up slowly around him, a car backing out somewhere down the block. A dog being walked, the particular mundane machinery of an ordinary morning. The complaint was gone. That particular threat anyway. He knew it wasn't over. He'd told Lena it wasn't over. Marcus had withdrawn one piece, but the man hadn't changed, hadn't reckoned, hadn't done any of the internal work that would make him a different or smaller danger. He'd just retreated to regroup. But the complaint was gone. Noah went back inside. Lena was at the coffee maker. She took one look at his face and read it immediately. She was getting good at that. "Good news," she said. "Haskell's clear," he said. "Complaints dropped." She closed her eyes for just a second. Just 1 second, brief and private. Then she poured his coffee and handed it to him. "Sit down," she said. "I made eggs." He sat. "Lena." She looked at him. "It's going to be okay," he said. She looked at him for a long moment, and he saw something in her face that hadn't been there on that curb in the rain. Something that hadn't been there for those first quiet, careful days. Something that had been growing slowly in the particular conditions of this house. Not just hope. Something steadier than hope. Yeah, she said. I know. She meant it. That was the difference. What none of them knew, sitting in that warm kitchen on that ordinary Monday morning with eggs on the stove and Mia still asleep down the hall, was that Marcus Brooks had not in fact retreated. He had simply stopped being visible. And for men like Marcus, invisible was far more dangerous than loud. Patricia called that afternoon with the information she'd been piecing together. Her voice when Lena answered was the careful, measured kind that meant she was about to say something that required the other person to be steady. I need you to sit down, Patricia said. Lena sat. I've been looking at the financials your attorney subpoenaed from the joint accounts, Patricia said. There's a pattern of transfers over the last 6 months. Small ones frequent into an account we can't immediately trace. She paused. This is what it looks like when someone prepares to make things very difficult, very deliberately. He's been planning this, Lena said. Since before you left, or you, Patricia said. Possibly well before. Lena thought about the last year of her marriage, the way Marcus had become methodical about certain things. The way conversations had shifted less explosive, more controlled. She'd told herself he was getting better. He hadn't been getting better. He'd been getting ready. What does this mean for the case? She asked. It means we move faster, Patricia said. And it means he's going to come at this harder than we expected. A pause. How are you holding up? Lena looked around Noah's kitchen. The crayon drawing on the refrigerator. The small sneakers by the door. The 2 coffee mugs in the drying rack, his and hers, side by side, just exactly like that. I'm holding up fine, she said. This time when she said the word fine, it meant something different. It meant she wasn't doing it alone. And Marcus, for all his planning, for all his invisible maneuvering, for all the money he'd been quietly moving for months, had not accounted for that. He had not accounted for a Navy man who didn't have a price. He had not accounted for a 7-year-old who had decided that Lena was staying before Lena had decided it herself. And he had not accounted for what happens to a woman when she is given for the first time in years a place where she is allowed to be something other than afraid. She was not afraid anymore. She was ready. Patricia had been right about one thing above everything else she'd said: Marcus moved faster than any of them expected. The financial records her team had subpoenaed told a story that was methodical, and cold transfers made over 14 months small enough to avoid automatic flags large enough to matter. An account in a cousin's name in Atlanta. A secondary LLC registered in Delaware that Patricia's paralegal found buried in 3 layers of business filings. Marcus Brooks had not been building a marriage in the last year and a half. He had been building an exit strategy. Except the exit was designed to leave Lena with nothing: no access to shared funds, no claim on assets he'd quietly moved, no financial ground to stand on when the legal battle started. He'd planned it the way he planned everything. Carefully. Invisibly. With the confidence of someone who had never once considered that the other person might fight back. What he hadn't planned for was Patricia Daniels, who had been doing this for 22 years, and who had, as she put it to Lena on a Wednesday morning in her small office, seen this exact playbook before. It's not original, Patricia said, sliding a document across her desk. Controlling financial abuse almost never is. They all use variations of the same method because it works. Until it doesn't. She tapped the document. We've already flagged the Delaware LLC. The transfers are documented. The judge in your case is not going to look kindly at this. When does it go to hearing? Lena asked. 6 weeks, maybe 5 if I push it. Patricia looked at her over the reading glasses. How are you holding up financially right now, day to day? I'm okay, Lena said. Patricia waited. I'm not paying rent, Lena said. My neighbor Noah, he won't take anything. I've tried. She paused. I've been picking up some freelance work, graphic design. I used to do it before Marcus convinced me it wasn't worth my time. She stopped on that. Let it sit. Turns out it's worth my time. Patricia smiled, brief, warm, the smile of someone who had heard this sentence in various forms from various women and never got tired of it. Good, she said. Keep the income records, every payment, every invoice. It helps the financial picture on your side. Patricia. Lena leaned forward slightly. Is he going to get away with it? The money. Patricia held her gaze. Not all of it, she said. Not if I have anything to say about it. But Lena, I want to prepare you for something. She folded her hands on the desk. This is going to get worse before the hearing. Men who plan this carefully don't stop planning just because we found the plan. He's going to do something. I don't know what yet, but I want you to be ready. Lena nodded. I'm ready, she said. She meant it more than she'd ever meant anything. She told Noah that evening while Mia was at a birthday party down the street, 2 hours of relative quiet, the kind that used to feel like relief and now felt like an opportunity. He listened the way he always listened, completely, without interrupting, without starting to formulate his response before she'd finished, which was a thing she'd noticed about him early on and hadn't stopped noticing. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. The Delaware LLC, he said. Patricia can freeze those assets. She's filing a motion this week. The judge has to agree, but she says the documentation is strong. Lena wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. He moved more than I thought, more than he made it look like we had. He made you feel like you couldn't leave, Noah said. Part of that is financial. Make them believe there's nothing on the other side of the door, they don't go near the door. She looked at him. You understand this stuff. I've seen it, he said. Not like this. But in the service you see people come back from situations that kept them in because they thought they had no options. Same mechanism. Different context. Did they get out? Some of them, he said honestly. The ones who did, they all had someone who helped them see that the nothing on the other side wasn't as nothing as they'd been told. She was quiet. That's what you did, she said. That first night. You opened the door and there was something on the other side, which I wasn't expecting. What were you expecting? She almost laughed. Honestly, I thought you'd let me sit on your couch for a night and feel very good about yourself, and that would be that. He looked at her with that almost smile. And instead, she said, you were just relentlessly decent. Like it wasn't even an effort. Like it was just the next right thing, and you did it without making it a whole production. It wasn't an effort, he said. It should have been, she said. Most people would have made it one. He considered this. My dad was a quiet man, he said. Not quiet like absent. Quiet like he didn't talk about the things he did. He just did them. He used to say that a man who needs credit for his decency probably isn't that decent. He looked at the table. I think about that a lot. Whether I'm doing things because they're right or because they make me feel a certain way about myself. And this, she said carefully, us being here. What does this make you feel? He looked up. Less alone, he said. Simply, directly. The way he said things that mattered. She held his gaze. Me too, she said. The house was quiet around them. The particular good quiet of a house that has two people in it who have stopped pretending they don't notice each other. Noah? Her phone rang. It was Patricia's number. At 8:30 in the evening, which was not Patricia's usual hour. She answered it. Lena. Patricia's voice was level, but had an edge beneath it. I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay calm. Lena's hand tightened on the phone. Tell me. Marcus filed something today. Late afternoon after our office closed. I just saw it an hour ago. A pause. He's filed for divorce, which is fine, that was coming regardless. But he's also petitioned to depose your current place of residence as part of the asset discovery. He's claiming that your living arrangement constitutes an extramarital relationship, and he wants to use it to challenge your character in the financial proceedings. The kitchen was very quiet. He's claiming I was having an affair, Lena said. He's implying it. Legally, it's a tactic. If he can paint your living situation as morally compromised, he thinks it gives him leverage to push the financial dispute in his direction. A pause. It won't work. I want you to know that. But it means Noah's name is going to be in the filing. It means this becomes public record. And it means Marcus's attorney will likely try to depose him. Lena looked at Noah. He had read her face the moment she answered. He was watching her now, still and steady as always. Does Noah need his own attorney? Lena asked. It would be prudent, Patricia said. A deposition isn't a trial, but it needs to be handled carefully. His base commander may also receive notification depending on how aggressive Cho gets. After she hung up, she set the phone on the table and told Noah everything word for word. He didn't react, not visibly. He just took it in. Okay, he said. Okay. She stared at him. Noah, he's going to drag your name through. I know what he's going to do, Noah said. I've known since that night in the driveway that this was the direction it was going. Men like Marcus, they can't fight the truth, so they go after the people telling it. He leaned back in his chair. Let him depose me. There is nothing in my life that I cannot account for, and nothing about this situation that I am ashamed of. Your career. Haskell backed me down the first complaint, he said. He'll back me here. He said it without arrogance, just the simple fact of a man who had been honest in every part of his life and trusted that record to speak for itself. And Jag can recommend me a good attorney who has dealt with exactly this kind of civilian interference with military personnel before. He met her eyes. This is not the part I'm worried about. What are you worried about? She said. You, he said. I'm worried about what this costs you, emotionally. Having him dig into your life and present it in a way that... He stopped. His jaw tightened briefly. I'm worried about what it feels like to sit in a room and have someone describe your life like it was something you chose. She looked at him for a long moment. I had 4 years of sitting in a room while someone described my life like I'd chosen it, she said quietly. At least this time the room will have a judge. Mia came home from the birthday party at 8:55, sugared up and full of information about the cake, the games, and a girl named Sophie, who had a dog and whose house had a trampoline, which Mia regarded with a level of reverence usually reserved for religious icons. She burst through the door and stopped when she felt the particular quality of the room. Kids do that. They walk into a room and feel it before they understand it. Is everything okay? She said. Everything's okay, Bug, Noah said. Mia looked at him, looked at Lena, did her careful 7-year-old calculation. Are you sure? She said. We're sure, Lena said. How was Sophie's dog? Mia's face immediately transformed. His name is Biscuit, and he has one ear that goes up and one ear that goes down, and Sophie said it's because he can't decide, and I think that's the best reason. She launched into a full report on Biscuit and Noah, and Lena sat and listened, and under the table without quite deciding to. Noah's hand moved and found Lena's and rested there, and she turned her hand over and held it, and neither of them looked at the other, just listened to Mia talk about the dog with the undecided ears. It was the most ordinary, extraordinary moment of both of their lives. The deposition notice arrived on a Friday. Noah's JAG recommended attorney, a trim, fast-talking man named Warren Cole, who had handled 6 similar cases involving civilian harassment of military personnel, called Noah that afternoon, and went through it line by line. Cho is fishing, Warren said. This is a pressure tactic, not a genuine evidentiary move. He wants you to feel the heat and decide it's not worth it. It's worth it, Noah said. I know. I've read the file. I just want you to hear it clearly. They are going to ask you uncomfortable questions. They will try to make the most innocent things sound calculated. The fact that you opened your home to her is going to be presented as the beginning of something deliberate. He paused. And you're going to sit there and answer every question the same way you've lived your life, directly and without apology. That's not going to be a problem, Noah said. Warren made a sound that was half laugh, half relief. I wish all my clients were as uncomplicated, he said. Deposition is in 3 weeks. We prep starting Monday. The week between the notice and the prep sessions was the hardest one. Not because anything catastrophic happened, but because Marcus had calculated this too. He'd timed the filing and the notice to create maximum sustained pressure, and he knew Lena well enough to know that waiting was harder for her than almost anything. She'd always been a person who could handle crisis better than anticipation. He'd used that against her for years. But something was different now. On a Tuesday night when she couldn't sleep and was sitting on the back patio at 2 a.m. with a blanket and a glass of water, Noah appeared in the doorway. "Couldn't sleep either," he said. "You should sleep," she said. "You have the early shift." "I'll sleep," he said, and sat in the other chair. They sat in the dark for a while. The neighborhood was still just the distant sound of traffic from the main road, and a dog somewhere answering another dog somewhere further away. "I keep playing it out," she said. "The deposition, what they're going to say, how they're going to make it sound. I know. They're going to make me sound stupid," she said. "Naive. A woman who let herself get manipulated twice, once by Marcus and then by you. Nobody who has spent 5 minutes in this house is going to believe that," he said. "It's not this house that matters," she said. "It's a conference room with a court reporter and an attorney whose job it is to make the worst interpretation of everything sound reasonable." She looked at the sky. "I know what Patricia says. I know the facts are on my side. But the facts, they can just be sitting there solid and true, and the other person can still walk circles around them." "Yeah," he said. He didn't argue it. "They can." "How do you handle that?" she asked. "The part where you've done everything right and it still might not be enough." He thought about it. "In the service?" he said slowly. "There's a thing that happens sometimes in a situation that's gone sideways. Everything you planned for didn't happen, and instead something else did, and you're standing in the middle of it and you have two choices. You can freeze, try to reprocess, try to find the plan that fits the new situation, try to make sense of it before you move. Or you can act on what you know." He paused. "Not on what you hoped, not on what you planned. On what you know. And the thing about what you know is it's always smaller than what you feared. Always cleaner. You know your name. You know what you did and didn't do. You know why." He looked at her. "In that conference room with Cho asking you questions that are designed to make you doubt yourself, you just come back to what you know. Every time. They can dress it up 100 different ways, and you just keep coming back to the plain, clean truth of it." She was quiet for a long moment. "I've been practicing that," she said. "Coming back to what I know." "I can tell," he said. "You're different than you were 3 weeks ago." "Different how?" "Less like someone who's waiting to be caught," he said. "More like someone who knows they haven't done anything wrong." She looked at him. "You notice a lot," she said. "You're easy to notice," he said. The words landed quietly between them. Neither of them looked away. "Noah," she said. "I know," he said. "The timing is, I know it's not—" "I'm not saying it's wrong," she said. "I'm saying I see it. What's happening between us." She paused. "I just need you to know that I'm not. This isn't me being grateful. I know that might be what it looks like from the outside. Woman in a crisis, kind man who helped her. I know that's the story." "That's not the story I see," he said. "What story do you see?" He was quiet for a moment. The dog somewhere in the distance answered the other dog again. "I see a woman who sat on a curb in the rain with a suitcase and a bruise," he said, "and got up anyway. Who cooked soup from scratch in a stranger's kitchen, and made his daughter laugh, and fought her own legal battle, and went to depositions, and didn't once ask me to carry something she could carry herself." He paused. "That's not someone leaning on me, Lena. That's someone walking beside me." He looked at her steadily. "That's a different thing. That's the only thing I've wanted for a very long time." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she reached over and took his hand in the dark, the way she had under the table with Mia talking about Biscuit the dog, easy and natural, like it was just the next right thing. "Okay," she said. "Okay," he said. "Okay." The deposition was on a Thursday. Warren had prepped her twice. Patricia had prepped her once. Lena had prepped herself every night for 2 weeks, going through the documents, through the dates, through every question she could anticipate, and the clean, plain answers that lived beneath them. She wore a dark blazer. Her hair was pulled back. She'd chosen the clothes deliberately, not to perform respectability, but to feel the armor of intention. She was not walking into that conference room as the woman Marcus had tried to reduce her to. She was walking in as someone who had done nothing wrong and could account for every single thing. Noah drove her. He didn't come inside. Warren had advised it on the grounds that his presence could give Cho ammunition for the "together before the divorce" was final angle. So he dropped her off at the building entrance and idled at the curb. "You've got this," he said. She looked at him. "I know," she said. She got out. She walked through the door without looking back, not because she wasn't thinking about him, but because she didn't need to. He was there. He'd be there when she came out. That was enough. Cho was exactly what she'd expected. Mid-40s, silver-haired, the expensive suit worn like a second skin, the particular smile that lawyers wear when they believe they control the room. He had a young associate beside him with a laptop and a court reporter at the end of the table and the digital recorder running. He asked about the night she left, about the suitcase, about how she came to be at Noah's door. She answered exactly as she'd practiced, directly, without elaboration, without the nervous over-explanation that she used to do with Marcus, filling silence with more words than necessary, because silence with him had always felt dangerous. Silence wasn't dangerous anymore. She'd learned that in a quiet kitchen, with a man who let silence be what it was. "Mrs. Brooks," Cho said, leaning forward slightly, "can you describe the nature of your relationship with Mr. Bennett?" "He's my neighbor," she said. "He gave me a safe place to stay." "Is it fair to say that the relationship has become more than neighborly?" "We're friends," she said. "Friends," Cho repeated, as if the word itself was suspicious. "Friends," she confirmed. No apology, no elaboration. "Were you aware when you moved into Mr. Bennett's home that he is a single man?" "I was aware he was a single father," she said. "Yes." "And you don't see how a reasonable person might interpret a married woman moving into the home of a single man as, I see how a person might want to interpret it that way," she said. "That's different from it being accurate." She held his gaze. "I was thrown out of my home by my husband on a night when the temperature was 42 degrees. My neighbor opened his door. He has a spare room. His 7-year-old daughter calls me by my first name, and I help her with her homework." She paused. "That's what happened. However you'd like to present it." Something flickered across Cho's face. Not quite respect, but recognition. He moved on to the financial questions. She answered those too. Every date, every account, every transfer that she and Patricia had documented. She knew the numbers better than Cho did by the time they'd been going 20 minutes, and he knew she knew them, and the dynamic in the room shifted in the particular way that happens when an attorney realizes the witness is not going to be rattled. It went for 2 hours and 14 minutes. When she came out of the building, Noah was parked across the street. She walked to the car, got in, closed the door. He looked at her. "How'd it go?" he said. She exhaled a long, slow exhale, the kind that carries 2 weeks of accumulated tension with it. "He didn't get what he came for," she said. Noah started the car. "Good." They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then she said, "He asked me to describe our relationship." "What did you say?" "I said we were friends." He glanced at her. "Is that still accurate?" he said. She looked at him. Outside the window, the city moved past ordinary and alive. "We're something," she said. "I'm still working out the right word." "Take your time," he said. "I'm not in a hurry," she said. And she wasn't. For the first time in a long time, she was exactly where she was supposed to be, moving at exactly the right speed. They got home to find Mia on the porch steps waiting. She had been at Kayla's after school and had apparently, according to Kayla, who texted Noah while they were in the car, asked every 20 minutes what time they'd be back. Not in an anxious way, just in the way of a child who knows what she's waiting for and is committed to the waiting. She launched herself off the steps when they pulled in. "How did it go?" she demanded, which was alarming because neither of them had explained to her in any detail what today was. "It went good, Bug," Noah said. Mia assessed Lena. Lena. "It went good," Lena confirmed. Mia nodded seriously. She reached out and took Lena's hand with the total casualness of someone who has been doing it forever. "I made a card," she said. "It's on the table. I drew us on it." "Yeah," Lena said. "It's the three of us," Mia said matter-of-factly, already pulling her toward the door. "I put you in the middle because you're the tallest after Dad, and I needed it to look balanced." They went inside. The card was on the kitchen table, crayon on construction paper. 3 figures in a row, green grass and yellow sun. The 3 of them holding hands with the particular joy of a child's drawing, where everyone is smiling and the sun is always out, and the house behind them has a door that is always open. Lena looked at it for a long time. She looked at Mia, at Noah standing in the kitchen doorway with his jacket still on, watching her look at the card. "Thank you," she said to Mia. "I love it." "I know," Mia said simply. "Are we having dinner? Because Kayla's snacks were not enough." And just like that, they were back in the kitchen, Noah pulling things out of the refrigerator, Mia on her stool at the counter, narrating what she thought dinner should be, Lena washing her hands at the sink and stepping in to take over the cutting because Noah held a knife like someone who had been taught by people who didn't particularly care about technique. 3 people in a kitchen. Dinner happening the way it happened every night. It was not the ending yet. Marcus still had cards to play. The hearing was still weeks away. The financial battle was not resolved and would not be easily. But standing in that kitchen, listening to Mia argue passionately for the addition of more cheese to whatever was being made, Lena understood something she hadn't expected to understand when she'd sat down on that curb in the rain with 1 suitcase and nowhere to go. The safe place she'd been looking for, the one she'd thought she needed someone to give her, she'd been building it herself. 1 day at a time, 1 dinner at a time, 1 true thing said in a quiet kitchen at a time. Noah hadn't given her safety. He'd given her the conditions in which she could build it. There was a difference, and she was only beginning to understand how enormous that difference was. The hearing was set for a Tuesday in March. Patricia had spent the preceding 3 weeks building the case with the particular focused energy of someone who takes things personally in the best possible way, not because it was required of her professionally, but because 22 years of watching men like Marcus Brooks walk away clean had deposited something in her that needed resolution. She called Lena the Friday before. "I want to tell you where we stand," she said, "and I want you to hear it clearly so you walk into that courtroom Tuesday with your feet on the ground." "Tell me," Lena said. "The financial documentation is strong. The transfers, the LLC, the 14 months of systematic asset movement, the judge has already seen preliminary filings, and his clerk requested additional documentation, which tells me he's taking it seriously." She paused. "The deposition transcript from your session worked in our favor. You were composed, direct, and consistent. Cho didn't get what he needed." "And Noah's deposition?" Patricia made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "was the most straightforward deponent I have encountered in a very long time. Cho asked him to characterize his relationship with you, and he said, and I am quoting directly from the transcript, 'She needed a safe place. I had one. That's the whole of it.'" Then he sat there and waited for the next question. A pause. Cho moved on fairly quickly. Lena closed her eyes for a moment. "What's the realistic outcome?" she said. "I need the real number, Patricia, not the optimistic one." "Realistically," Patricia said, "the hidden assets get traced and partially recovered. Not all of it. Some of what he moved is going to require additional legal action in Atlanta to chase down, and that takes time and money. We'd have to weigh against what we'd recover. But the Delaware LLC is frozen, and the judge is not going to look kindly at what the financials show." She paused. Realistically, you come out of this with enough to stand on. Not everything you deserved, but enough. Enough, Lena repeated. Enough is where most people start over from, Patricia said. I've watched women start over from a lot less. She didn't tell Noah how nervous she was. Not because she was hiding it from him. They were past hiding things from each other, but because the nervousness belonged to her. It was hers to carry, and hers to set down, and part of what this whole long season had taught her was the difference between sharing a burden and handing it to someone else to carry in your place. She processed it the way she'd learned to process things in this house. She moved through it. She cooked a complicated dinner on Saturday that required full attention and left no room for anxiety spiraling. She helped Mia with a science project about the water cycle, crouching beside her at the kitchen table, and felt the particular grounding that comes from explaining something simple and true to a child who is genuinely interested. Sunday night after Mia was in bed, she sat at the kitchen table with her documents spread out for the last time and went through everything. Not to find new information, just to know it, to sit with the full weight of what she was bringing into that courtroom, every date, every text, every transfer, every photograph, every signed statement, and feel how solid it was. Noah sat across from her and read something of his own, and didn't ask her what she was doing because he already knew. At some point, she looked up and found him watching her. "Stop," she said. "Stop what?" "Looking at me like that." "Like what?" She looked at him for a moment. "Like you already know how it ends." "I do know how it ends," he said, simply, without drama. "You can't know that." "I know you," he said. "That's close enough." She looked back at her documents, but something in her chest had loosened just slightly, the way a muscle releases when it's been held too long. "Noah." "Yeah. After all this is over," she said carefully. "After the hearing and the order and whatever comes after that, I need to find my own place. I need to do that." He didn't say anything. "Not because of this," she said quickly. "Not because I want to leave, but because I came here with nothing and I need to know I can build something. On my own. Under my own name." She paused. "Does that make sense?" "Yeah," he said. "It makes complete sense." "You're not Lena," he said. "You don't need my permission to need that, and you don't need to explain it." He held her gaze. "You should have your own place, your own life that you built. That matters." He paused. "What happens between that life and this one, that's a different conversation. One we can have when you're ready." She looked at him. "You're remarkably undramatic for someone in a very dramatic situation," she said. "I've been in dramatic situations," he said. "I've learned to save the energy." Tuesday came the way important days always come too quickly and preceded by a night of almost no sleep. Noah drove her. Warren met them outside the courthouse at 8:15 with coffee and a manila folder and the brisk, focused energy of someone who had done this many times and found his best self in the doing of it. "Straightforward day," Warren said. "Patricia presents the financial documentation. Cho responds. The judge has questions. You may or may not be called to speak if you are. Remember what we practiced. Short, direct, truthful." "I remember," she said. "And Noah." Warren looked at him. "You're here as support. You're not a party in today's proceeding. If Cho addresses you directly, which he may try to do in the hallway, you say nothing and come get me." "Understood," Noah said. They went in. The courtroom was smaller than she'd expected. Wood paneling and fluorescent light and the particular institutional quiet of a room where people come to settle things. The judge was a woman in her 60s named the Honorable Sandra Merritt, who had the face of someone who had heard every version of every story and was no longer surprised by any of them, but who listened, Lena noticed with her full attention, not waiting for her turn to speak, actually listening. Marcus was at the opposite table. She saw him before he saw her, and she used those 3 seconds to simply look at him. This man she had spent 4 years trying to be enough for this man who had so carefully constructed the reality of their life together that she'd stopped being able to see the edges of it. He looked the same. Good suit, composed expression, the particular performance of a reasonable man surrounded by an unreasonable situation. Then he saw her. Something crossed his face. Quickly. She'd spent years learning to read those quick crossing things. It was surprise. Not at her presence he knew she'd be here. It was surprise at something about her. The way she held herself, maybe. The way she walked to her table without looking at the floor. The way she sat down with her documents in front of her, and her hands resting easy, and her face quiet and open and completely, utterly unafraid. She wasn't the woman who had sat on that curb. He could see it. And the seeing of it had cost him something in the calculation he'd spent months building. Good, she thought. Patricia presented for 40 minutes. She was methodical and precise, and somehow managed to be both entirely factual and deeply human about it. She laid out the 14 months of financial transfers with the clarity of a forensic accountant and the controlled gravity of someone who understood that behind the numbers was a person who had been systematically stripped of her options. The Delaware LLC. The Atlanta account. The pattern of transfers calibrated to stay below automatic reporting thresholds. The timing beginning 18 months into the marriage, long before any formal separation, suggesting not reactive behavior but premeditated strategy. Cho objected twice. Judge Merritt overruled both times with the particular brevity of someone who has read the filing. When Cho presented, he tried the character argument. He brought up the living arrangement. He used the word inappropriate twice and questionable once, and every time he did, Lena watched Judge Merritt's expression and saw nothing move in it except a faint tightening around the eyes that suggested she had very little patience for the direction this was going. "Counselor," Judge Merritt said, at a point when Cho was circling back to Noah's name for the third time. "I have the deposition transcript in front of me. I've read it. Is there a substantive legal point you're building toward, or are we done with this line?" Cho pivoted. He didn't have much to pivot to. The judge called a 30-minute recess before her preliminary ruling. Lena walked out into the hallway with Patricia on one side and Warren on the other, and Noah was there standing against the wall where he'd been sitting in the gallery. Civilians could observe Warren had confirmed, and she walked straight to him, and he straightened off the wall, and she stopped in front of him. "Patricia was incredible," she said. "I watched," he said. "Yeah." "He had nothing," she said. "By the end, he had nothing." "He had nothing when he walked in," Noah said. "He just didn't know it yet." Warren stepped away to take a call. Patricia was already back on her phone. The hallway moved around them with the traffic of a working courthouse, attorneys and clerks, and people clutching folders, all the machinery of the place where human disputes get formally resolved. "How are you feeling?" Noah said. She thought about it. Really thought about it. "Like something is about to end," she said. "And something else is about to start. And I can't fully see the second thing yet, but I'm not scared of it." She paused. "I haven't not been scared in a very long time." "I know," he said. "I think the last time I wasn't scared," she said slowly, "was before Marcus. Before I stopped trusting my own instincts about things." She looked at him. "You know what helped me get those back? What when watching you with Mia," she said. "Watching someone just be exactly who they said they were every day consistently without needing anything back from it." She stopped. "I'd forgotten people like that existed. And then there you were burning everything you cooked and driving me to legal aid appointments and standing in your driveway in the dark with a military ID in the rain." She almost smiled. Remarkably on brand. He looked at her for a moment. "Lena," he said. "I know," she said. "Later. We'll do all of that later. Right now I just need you to know that—" She stopped, got the words right. "Whatever happens in there, whatever she rules, I'm okay. And a lot of that is because of you." He nodded once. "You did this," he said. "I just kept the door open." "That was the whole thing," she said. "That was everything." Judge Merritt's preliminary ruling took 11 minutes to deliver. She found the financial documentation credible and sufficient to support a forensic accounting review of all marital assets to be conducted by a court-appointed specialist. She ordered the Delaware LLC to remain frozen, pending full discovery. She noted with the kind of judicial understatement that carries more weight than any dramatic pronouncement that the pattern of asset transfers presented by the plaintiff's counsel raised significant concerns about financial bad faith during the marriage. The character argument Cho had built around the living situation she addressed in 2 sentences. 2 sentences. She noted that the plaintiff's choice of temporary residence following displacement from the marital home bore no relevance to the financial proceedings before the court and would not be considered as a factor. That was it. 2 sentences, and it was gone. Lena sat very still while she listened. She heard Marcus across the room say something quiet and sharp to Cho. She didn't look at him. There was nothing over there she needed to see. Outside the courtroom in the pale March sunlight, Patricia hugged her for the first time. Briefly, firmly, the hug of a professional who permits herself this one thing. "It's not over," Patricia said, pulling back. "The forensic review takes time. The Atlanta account may take additional proceedings. But today—" She paused, and her eyes behind the reading glasses were something that wasn't quite warmth and wasn't quite triumph, but was some combination that felt earned. "Today was a very good day." "Thank you," Lena said, "for all of it." "Go home," Patricia said. "Pick up that little girl from school and go home." They picked up Mia. She came off the bus with her backpack bouncing and a drawing rolled up in her hand. She was always producing drawings, and she looked at their faces the way she always looked at faces reading the room before she knew what room it was. "Good," she said. "Very good," Lena said. Mia held out the rolled drawing. "I made this in art today. It's for the refrigerator." Lena unrolled it. 3 figures again. Crayon on white paper. But this one was different from the others, more detailed, more careful, the kind of drawing a child makes when they've been thinking about it instead of just doing it. The house in the background had windows with light in them. There was a cat on the porch, which they didn't have, but Mia had been campaigning for one for 6 weeks. And in the center of the 3 figures, the middle one, the one that was her version of Lena, had her arms out to both sides, one hand holding the small figure, one hand holding the tall figure, holding them together. Lena looked at it for a long time. "Mia," she said carefully. "The middle one, that's me." "Mm-hmm," Mia said, already moving toward the car. "She's the one holding everyone together." Mia looked back at her with the expression of someone explaining something that should be obvious. "That's because you do," she said, and got in the car. Noah was looking at Lena over the roof of the car. She folded the drawing carefully. She didn't say anything, neither did he. Some things don't need to be said. They just need to be known. Three months later, Lena signed the lease on a 1-bedroom apartment 7 minutes from Noah's house. It was the 3rd floor of a building with good light and a kitchen that was slightly too small, and a bathroom with a window which she'd decided was non-negotiable after months of the small bathroom in Noah's hallway with no window at all. She had negotiated the lease herself. She had put down the deposit herself. From her own account, which had been rebuilt slowly and steadily from freelance design work that had grown over those months from scattered small jobs into something that resembled an actual business. She'd made a website. She'd gotten 3 referrals from 1 client. She'd turned those into 6 more. It was small, but it was hers. Entirely, completely, bottom to top hers. The morning she picked up the keys, Noah drove her and Mia waited at home school day. And when they stood in the empty apartment together, footsteps echoing slightly on the bare floor, he looked around at the light coming through the windows and said nothing for a moment. "Good bones," he said finally. "I thought so," she said. She walked to the kitchen, ran her hand along the counter, opened the cabinet above the sink. "I'm going to paint that wall," she said, nodding at the far wall of the main room. "Blue-green, like the inside of a wave." "Bold," he said. "Yeah," she said. "I think that's the point." He was watching her the way he watched her sometimes, not the evaluating look, Not the measuring look, not the careful look of those first weeks. The other look, the one that had been there since the patio in the dark and had never entirely gone away. "You look like yourself," he said. She turned. "What do you mean?" "In this room," he said. "The way you're moving around in it, figuring out where things go, deciding what color to paint the wall." He paused. "You look like someone who knows who she is." She held his gaze. "I'm still figuring some of it out," she said. "Yeah," he said. "That's what I mean. You're doing the figuring instead of waiting for someone else to do it for you." He crossed to the window, looked out at the street below. "That's what you look like when you're yourself." She came and stood beside him at the window. "Mia cried last night," she said. "About me moving out. She didn't want me to see, but she'd been crying." "I know," he said. "I heard her. I told her 7 minutes is nothing. I told her I'd still come for dinner. I told her I'd still help with homework and come to school things, and none of that changes." She paused. "She made me promise." "She'll hold you to it," he said. "You know that." "I'm counting on it," she said. They stood at the window together for a moment, watching the ordinary movement of the street below. A woman walking a dog, a delivery truck, idling 2 kids on bikes, all of it unremarkable and alive, and exactly the kind of normal that had once felt like something Lena might never find her way back to. "Noah," she said. "Yeah." "That conversation," she said. "The one you said we'd have when I was ready." He turned to look at her. "I'm ready," she said. He looked at her for a long moment. The April light through the window was doing something to the room, filling it the way light fills a space that's been recently emptied of the wrong things and is waiting for the right ones. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I want to be clear about that, so there's no ambiguity. I'm not holding anything back waiting to see which way this goes. I know which way it goes." He paused. "For me, it's been clear for a while." "Since when?" she said. He thought about it. "Since you came back from the legal aid appointment and said you'd answered yes before Patricia finished the sentence," he said. "When you told me you felt safe. That was—" He stopped. "That was when I knew." She nodded slowly. "For me, it was the soup," she said. He blinked. "The chicken soup. The way you looked at it," she said. "You came home, and you looked at that pot on the stove, and your whole face did something I recognized. Something I hadn't seen on someone's face in a very long time." She paused. "It looked like coming home to something." "Yeah," he said. "That's what it was. I thought a man who looks at a bowl of soup like that, who still has that kind of capacity to be moved by something ordinary, that man is not broken," she said. "Tired, maybe. Carrying more than he should be doing alone, but not broken." She held his gaze. "I wanted to be around someone who wasn't broken. I hadn't realized how much I'd forgotten that was possible until I saw it in you." He reached out and took her hand. Easy, natural. The way it had always been between them, no performance, no grand gesture. Just the simple direct movement of someone closing a distance they should have closed sooner. "So," he said. "So," she said. "Dinner Thursday," he said. "Not as neighbors. Not as whatever we've been calling it. Thursday," she agreed. "And Mia already knows," he said. "Just so you know. She told me 2 months ago that we should just call it what it was." Lena laughed. A full, real laugh that filled the empty apartment and echoed slightly off the bare walls. "Of course she did," she said. She said, and I am quoting directly, "Dad, it's not complicated. You just have to say the thing." "She's 7, Lena said. "She's 7, he agreed. And she's right." The forensic review took 4 more months. When it concluded, the court-appointed specialist had traced all but a portion of the moved assets. Judge Merritt's final ruling in the divorce came down on a September afternoon: equitable distribution of the recovered assets, a finding of financial misconduct against Marcus that carried consequences he had not expected, and his attorney had not adequately prepared him for, and a permanent protective order that replaced the emergency one. Patricia called to deliver the news and then said without preamble, "Go do something good tonight." Lena said she would. She took the call on the patio of her apartment. The blue-green wall had been painted. The kitchen had been arranged exactly how she wanted it. The bathroom window let in the morning light, and after she hung up, she sat for a moment with the phone in her lap and let herself feel the full size of it. It wasn't everything. It wasn't the 4 years she couldn't get back. It wasn't the version of herself that had gone quiet for too long. Those things weren't returned by a judge's ruling, and she had made her peace with that. But it was something clean. It was an ending that said what happened to you was real, and you were right to leave, and the door you walked out of was not the last door. She texted Noah, "It's done." She ruled. His reply came in 30 seconds. "Come over, Mia's been waiting." She drove the 7 minutes with the windows down. September air coming through the kind of evening that makes you feel like the year is completing itself honestly. Mia met her at the door. Not with words, with her arms launched around Lena's waist, the way she launched herself at her father, with the full-body commitment of a child who has decided once and does not revisit the decision. Lena held her. Noah was in the kitchen. She could hear him in there, hear the sound of the oven, and she could already tell from the smell that something was either very ambitious or already beyond saving. Probably both. She'd learned to love this about him, the gap between his intention and his execution in a kitchen, the particular undaunted quality of a man who burns things without embarrassment and keeps trying anyway. "It smells like an accident," she said when she came in. "It's fine," he said, not turning from the stove. "It's really not," she said. "It's mostly fine." She came and stood beside him and looked at whatever was in the pan. "Move," she said. "I had a plan." "Move," she said again, and hip-checked him gently out of the way. He stepped aside without argument. This was also something she loved about him, the way he yielded without ego when the situation required it. The way he knew the difference between standing firm and getting out of the way, and never confused the two. She took over the stove. Mia climbed onto her stool at the counter. Noah leaned against the opposite counter and crossed his arms and watched the two of them and said nothing. "You're staring again," Lena said, not looking up. "I'm allowed," he said. "Dad stares because he doesn't know what else to do with his face," Mia said matter-of-factly. "That's an accurate assessment," Noah said. Lena laughed again, the real kind, the kind that kept catching her off guard how often she did it. Now, how easy it was, how far it felt from the version of herself who had forgotten that laughter was just a thing that happened when something was genuinely good. Dinner came together. The table got set. Mia insisted on a specific arrangement she'd decided upon with the salt and pepper in the center, and the napkins folded in a way she'd seen somewhere and practiced on her own. They sat down. Mia looked at both of them with the seriousness of a tiny judge. "Are we a family?" she said. The question landed in the room and stayed there. Not the same words as once before, or maybe exactly the same words. Mia had a way of returning to the questions that mattered, circling them patiently until someone gave them the answer they deserved. Noah looked at Lena. Lena looked at Mia. "Yes," she said. The word was simple and complete, and left no room for asterisks. Mia nodded, satisfied, like she'd known all along and just needed the confirmation made official. "Okay," she said. "Can we eat now? I'm starving." And they ate. All three of them around a table that had once been too quiet in a house that had once been too empty on a September evening, that smelled like a second chance, which is the best thing any evening can smell like, and rarer than most people know, until they've lived without it long enough to understand what they were missing. Noah had not saved Lena. He had simply opened a door. She had walked through it on her own feet, and she had stayed on her own terms, and she had fought her own fight and built her own life and found her own way back to herself. And all of that was hers, every inch of it earned in the particular way that only the hardest things can be earned. But the door had mattered, and the man who opened it in the rain without ceremony, without expectation, without asking for anything in return, who showed up every day for his daughter and his duty and eventually for her, quietly and completely, and without apology, that man had turned out to be exactly what she'd stopped believing in, The real kind. And in the end, that was the only kind that counts.